And we're back. We're back. We're back. It's the Daily Lock-In each and every day, 5 o'clock Central, 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm here with my guy, man, Brian Waters, co-host of the Wrestling Round Pod. What's up, B?
What's up, man? Appreciate. What's good, brother? Appreciate that intro.
Oh, nah, we gotta do a little bit of culture in everything that we do, man. What's been up?
Man, just getting ready for Black Wrestle Fest this Saturday, and also producing Mac Mania for Ringer, which is under Spotify, as well as we got this project called The Book of Wrestling, which is an audio documentary series where we retell the story of the Attitude Era. It's hosted by David Shoemaker. I'm the lead producer. We're on episode 7, I think. I can tell you we did the first episode was the curtain call, which you remember when Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash broke kayfabe and all stood together in Madison Square Garden. Then episode 2 was Austin 316. 3 was, I want to say it was Pillman's Got a Gun. Okay. No, you won a war. That was when Scott Hall and Kevin Nash went over to WCW, and then they did the fake Razor, fake Diesel. But WWE said, "Well, we still own the rights to Razor Ramon and Diesel." It was the craziest thing. Then we did, Pillman's Got a Gun. We're on Suck It Part 2. We did Suck It Part 1, and so yeah, we anything you could think of from the Attitude Era, we'll be doing an episode on. We did Die Rocky Die, which was a lot of fun. Hearing Farouk and, or I should say, Ron Simmons and the Godfather talk about the evolution of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Now, I think the Attitude Era resonates with us 90s babies just so much that it's just like I'm speaking for myself. I can't enjoy the sport as much because of the Attitude Era. It's just because the antics, the charisma, the showmanship of the Attitude Era, it's just unmatched for me, and I like a little bit of ignorance. It's just a little bit of me.
Well, the thing is about the Attitude Era, for a lot of us 90s kids, it was when we first was introduced to wrestling.
You're right.
For me, I was introduced literally from the womb. My mother can tell you that when she was pregnant with me, that every time wrestling came on, I started kicking. And it's a true story.
DDT your mom from the womb.
When she would say body slams, not so much the DDT, but every time, Vince McMahon or somebody said, "Welcome to the World Wrestling Federation," her stomach would start jumping. And, in 86, she knew, okay, this is a boy. And even though my grandmother said, "Are you sure?" I don't know. My mother said she knew it. And after I was born, that's when she became a fan, and she would always brag about going to the shows and seeing like Hulk Hogan and Big John Studd. I didn't go to my first show till 2004, but that's another story. But the thing is that for me, I was introduced early in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, but the Attitude Era really solidified wrestling for me. But like you said, a lot of us 90s kids, that's when it was. And you can't replicate that. I mean, the world wouldn't even have the Attitude Era now just because it was so toxic. But it was it was a great time in our lives. And Vince McMahon saw the writing on the wall around 2000. I would say probably 5, 6, 7, 8 when he decided to go back PG, because wrestling was always catered towards children. Yeah. And then you have now with the internet and everything, you can't really cater it towards children. I mean, the 18 to 35 demographic, when you have something like UFC out, and it's more money, let's face it, with children. If I go to a show, I take my 2 kids, that's 3 tickets, that's 3
t-shirts,
concessions, everything.
Merchandise, like you said, you're buying about a 3.
Yeah. Exactly. If you go, you might just go by yourself, or say you go to Homeboy, I'm saying, I ain't buying nothing today. Children, not that you have to, but you want to give them the full experience. I know, I'll tell you this, I got free tickets to a show and still ended up spending close to $100 because I got 2 t-shirts and and 2 belts. So
you gotta get the belts. That's the one thing I think I lean on. If I had kids and you go to that match, it's like you just can't walk out without at least a shirt, but exactly the most a belt.
Yeah, like my kids, they walk around. They both got 2 belts apiece. Actually, my son might have 3, but. And, they walk around with the belt. They feel like champions and whatnot. So it's an experience. When we was younger, I remember you could get the belt from Kmart for about $20.
Correct.
During the Attitude Era. Now, you know, they probably about 30 at Target. But it was still like you had your wrestling matches because, you know, we all like, you see the old pictures of John Cena when he designed his championship belt. And a lot of wrestling fans did that. And that's the same thing that happened, you know, what we did. But then when we went in the store and we saw it, we just had to have it. You know what I mean?
And then see, in my childhood, we would actually just do random things for that said championship belt. It didn't quantify to I have to wrestle you. It's just like that was the Super Bowl ring for the 90s kids. Like no matter
Exactly.
what, we're competing against each other for this wrestling belt.
Exactly, Norm. And you know, like you've covered a lot of championships in sports. You know that even now, when they win that championship, they'll have a championship belt.
A belt.
There,
Aaron
you
Rodgers.
know? Exactly. You know, sometimes it's a WWE replica, sometimes it's just a custom-made championship. Or, you know, I say belts. You know, I know they say you don't call it a belt. A belt is what holds your pants up. It's a title, it's a championship, but it's a belt.
It has what are like the belt loops in it? Like it has the little it's a belt. It's a belt.
Exactly.
But okay. Now, what I want to talk to you today is about the African Americans in wrestling. And I want to talk about, you know, like I see that Sasha Banks is coming back from suspension. You know,
Wait, that happened? She coming back?
She's coming. She's coming from Bleach Report. I don't want to misquote anybody or speak any information that's not true. But I mean, according to Bleach Report, Sasha Banks is coming. Supposedly, going to be coming back from suspension.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't because I must have missed the news. That's all.
Yeah, okay.
I haven't gotten on nothing yet, but my bad.
Right. So what I want to talk about is, you know, why was it so surprising that she walked out during Monday Night Raw?
You said why was it surprising? One, they're the tag team champions, and you look at Sasha Banks. Anybody knows about her WrestleMania career? She went into this WrestleMania having yet to win a match, right? While last year, her and Bianca Belair were the first two women to main event, first two Black women in the match to main event WrestleMania for night one.
Monumental.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Exactly. But it was a time where she could put over Bianca and help make Bianca into a star. I was, you know, because honestly, the match could have went either way. He was like, okay, yeah, Bianca won the Royal Rumble, but Sasha hasn't had that WrestleMania win. And that was the thing that made it great because we've been watching wrestling long enough. Sometimes you could tell, okay, this person's going to win. We just got to get there, right?
Yeah.
Like, be honest with you, even this year with Bianca winning against Becky Lynch, we knew she should win, but there's always the doubt with Black wrestlers, unfortunately. But you know, so with Sasha and Naomi winning the tag team championships at the at WrestleMania, and then sort of having, you know, a tag team, you know, you're starting to see them they just got new shirts. For them to walk out, you know, it was like, wow. But looking at everything that happened, it's kind of not surprising just because the way the according to the, you know, rumor and innuendo, and the reason why I say that because I don't have nothing confirmed from them, but according to rumor and innuendo, they wanted Naomi to win what they call a six-pack challenge. And she was going to win the match that night and then lose to Bianca at the next pay-per-view.
She not going for that.
The reason why she wasn't going for it was because she wasn't the first choice. And it was like, all right, y'all the tag team champions, but we're going to have Sasha face Ronda Rousey, who's the SmackDown Women's Champion, and we're going to have Naomi face Bianca Belair, who's the Raw Women's Champion. Both of y'all going to lose, but y'all going to help elevate these stars. And their whole point was, we're the tag team champions. Let us face other tag teams. Correct, why do we need to lose this match? And the only reason why they threw Naomi in that was because, according to them, either Asuka or Becky Lynch did not want to be the first person to lose to Bianca. It was kind of obvious, like when somebody wins a championship at WrestleMania, and, you know, especially coming off the Royal Rumble win, they're 99.99% chance they're going to win their first title defense, right?
Right.
It was very rare in 2002 for Triple H to have this big comeback at Madison Square Garden, win the 2002 Royal Rumble in Atlanta, go to WrestleMania in Toronto, beat Jericho, become the undisputed champion, only to lose to Hulk Hogan in essentially his first championship defense at Backlash. And that was a Triple H call, from what I've heard over the years. He said, "Let's shock the world. Let's just put the belt on Hogan."
See,
And
let's shock the world.
yeah, because Hogan was like in his 50s. He was making his comeback.
I was about to say the TV show was coming around that time. Like Hulk Hogan was trying to get back Mixie in that time.
And mind you, this is when when WWE bought WCW, they didn't have Hogan, Hall, and Nash was still under the WCW Time Warner contract. So why would you go to work if you could sit home and get paid nothing? I mean, get paid millions of dollars. You just wait it out. So that's the reason why the NWO came later during the invasion. So, but then they were surprised at the reaction that Hogan got, because everybody was like loving him. So that's why they changed him from NWO to Red and Yellow again. And then Triple H made the call. So, but wrestlers know, okay, I'm the first opponent. I got to help establish this person's title run. So the rumor was that Becky Lynch and Asuka didn't want to do that job to Bianca first, because it would be so obvious. So because of that, that's the reason why they said, all right, fine. Well, let's just throw Naomi in there. And Naomi pretty much like, look, I had enough. I don't want to do this. It doesn't make sense. Y'all made us tag team champions. Why are we wrestling the champions? Let us face other tag team. That's what the rumor is. If that is true, it's not, I've heard everything like, oh, well, they get paid, they should do a job, and this, that, and the other. I do think that what happened is the WWE went backwards with their women's division. You look at the landscape in 2018 when it was women's empowerment. They had Evolution, the first all women's pay-per-view and everything. But now all of a sudden, you're going to, kind of like put them at a back burner.
Women stars against each other. Instead of, like you said, just pushing and bigging up all the women in the sport. Now, my question to you is it more, like you say, taking a backtrack to the women's division, or is it still an African-American problem within the wrestling world?
That's a great question. I think it's both. I do think it's both, because whenever is wrestling's late to the party, right? You look at all the sports and you see like Black athletes, we dominate every sport. In wrestling, you look over the years, let's take out the characters and let's just take like the physique. There's no reason it's taken so long to get a first Black WWE champion, right? And the first Black WWE champion doesn't come until 1998 when it's The Rock. Oh, by the way, we're not going to acknowledge that he's a person of color. No. We're not going to acknowledge that he's Samoan or Black during his title run. We acknowledged that when we first brought him in because we told you who his father was. We told you who his grandfather is. But now we just going to be like, oh, he's just The Rock, right? Now you move forward. You don't get another champion until Kofi Kingston. And that was because the people got behind it. And this was in 2019. So when you look at it, yeah, it is a Black problem, especially Black women, when you have commentators going on air saying they were unprofessional, XYZ. Yet in November, you had Charlotte and Becky have a, go off script, throwing the belt at each other, handing the belt at each other, go backstage, argue, battling each other through media. Becky Lynch did an interview with Ariel Helwani and she's bashing Charlotte. Charlotte does an interview with The Ringer, says she feels like she's the only adult in the room. So you have all this going on, but you don't say it as much as you do when it comes to Black women. So it is an issue that you do have in the industry. It's getting better, but still a lot. You still have a long ways to go.
Now that segues into my next question is the WWE behind? Because so many stars are starting to be vocal about the work conditions, and then some are just like don't care about their contracts. They're just leaving the sport, and others are completely just leaving WWE to go to other leagues. Why so many stars are leaving? Is Vince McMahon the problem?
No, I wouldn't say Vince is the problem. I'll say that a lot of times they may not understand what they have, maybe not understand what they signed up for.
Okay.
You do see the evolution of AEW, and you have Tony Khan, which I've said when Tony Khan purchased AEW, like Tony Khan is the ultimate wrestling fan, right?
And that's the owner
He
of the Jags?
yeah, his dad is the owner of the Jaguars. He does sit on like one of the like he's got an executive position with the Jaguars, and he was the ultimate wrestling fan. He created AEW, partnering with the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega, and but when he first created it, there was a lot of people that I believe he wanted, but he just couldn't get to because they were tied up in NXT. At the time, NXT, which is Triple H's baby, was a program in which you saw for the ultimate wrestler, the independent darlings, as they call them, the people who do all the cool moves, got minimum character. He would bring them there. He would help build their characters. Daniel Bryan would say, finish in school, where, all right, we know you know how to wrestle, but can you connect with the crowd? He would help them get to that
Like the
point.
G League.
Yeah, bingo. That's exactly the best way to put it. And then some of them would go to the main roster, and some of them went, like, you look at a guy like one of the best wrestlers in the world, one of the biggest names in the business, Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins was in Ring of Honor. He went to NXT, first NXT champion, went to WWE, was the part of the Shield, and he cashed in at Money in the Bank, had one of the best Money in the Bank cashes ever at WrestleMania 31. So, but then as contracts started ending, Tony Khan's over there like, well, come on over here, play with us. You ain't got to do as much. Yeah, he give you the bag. And a lot of his wrestlers kind of got pushed to the back burner. Now that, I said that when this happened, NXT rebranded as NXT 2.0. That's where you might have seen over the course of the timeline where you have wrestlers, people, the NIL stuff, right? Next, and then WWE has their Next in Line program where they're recruiting college athletes. People like they recruit a young lady who is in gymnastics. They recruit weightlifters, football players. Their current champion, Braun Breaker, who's the son of Rick Steiner and the nephew of Scott Steiner, he was a Raven a year ago. He was a part of the Ravens training camp. They brought him in. It's in his blood, wrestling. And most of the time, so one of my friends is Lance on Hawaii. I don't know if you remember the head shrinker, Samu. He was Rikishi's partner before Rikishi became Rikishi when he was just
You take
spot
it
two.
back. And
But
then you just named my friend. You just name dropping. All right.
So Lance at the time when I met him, he was like 19 and he was, or maybe 18 or 19. And he was, young in the business. And he told me that his dad told him, go play baseball. Wrestling's always going to be there. And that was the same thing with like Roman Reigns. A lot of people knew him as Joe on Hawaii playing for Georgia Tech. He played football just like The Rock. So in the Samoan culture, wrestling is there.
Right.
You go try other sports, try other things. If it don't work out, if you still want to wrestle, it's just going to fall by the wayside. It's like when you have children, if they decide, they want to get into broadcasting because of you, it's going to be easy for them, right?
Just come on down.
Yeah. So try other things. And that's what happens. But like with this NXT, with the WWE Next in Line program, WWE figure, okay, the independent wrestlers, some of them aren't trained right. They come in with this big idea, whatever. Let them go to AEW. And if they become superstars, we'll recruit them. We'll steal them. We'll give them, because at the end of the day, who doesn't want to perform at WrestleMania, right? You brought the G League. It's nice winning the G League championship, but the ultimate goal is the NBA All-Star game and the NBA Finals, right?
True.
So that's the thing. WWE will start recruiting those from over there. So with the Next in Line program, they're building the stars from the ground up. They're teaching them how to wrestle, the fundamentals, the WWE style, because it's a different style, teaching them character development. And if they make it through the program, they'll be a star. Bianca Belair is the prime example. She's almost set expectations too high. She was a track star at the University of Tennessee. Mark Henry discovered her because she was doing CrossFit. And he slid in her DM and said, hey, I think you could be a wrestler. Same with Braun Strowman. He recruited him. Well, Bianca comes in. And if you look at some of her earlier matches, when she was in NXT, you can see like, okay, she's a star. She has the look. She has a character, but the wrestling is still coming. Now, when it's all said and done, in my opinion, she's going to be the greatest women's wrestler between her, Charlotte Flair, and Sasha Banks.
Now, about the black wrestling stars, the Bianca Belair, Naomi, Sasha Banks, who are some of the rising women that's in WWE? Is there any other women that you kind of see trailblazing?
Roxanne from NXT.
Okay.
She was on Wrestling for the Culture. Go back in the archives on the Wrestling Realms YouTube page. I interviewed her. Her name at the time was Roxy. She's somebody. She's come under the tutelage of Booker T
Okay.
down in Texas.
Big OG. Love Booker T.
Yeah. You know, he has his own school down there, and he has Reality of Wrestling, which comes on every week. But yeah, she's a star. One, my best friend in the business is Amber Rodriguez, who's a star in the making. She's on, she signed the WoW Women of Wrestling Superheroes. But one of the things, Amber, like, she worked with Roxy, and she was like, yeah, she's the prodigy. She's the prodigy for a reason. And you know, so it wasn't surprising that WWE signed her. I think she's 20 now, maybe give her a turn 21. She just won the NXT Breakout Tournament, which was kind of like their next in line. Like, okay, these are the breakout stars. There's a gentleman by the name of Carmelo Hayes down there, another young black wrestler. He won it, and now he's the two-time North American NXT North American champion. But Roxanne, I'm still trying to get used to calling Roxanne instead of Roxy, because you know, WWE intellectual property, they changed the names.
Okay.
But yeah, Roxanne is definitely a star in the making. I think Shotzi, somebody, you know, I'm kind of waiting to see which way they're gonna do with her, but I think she's coming up. And you know, you have Mandy Rose, who was on Tough Enough. Mandy Rose was, you know, a fitness model, and she was on the main roster. They sent her back to NXT for the rebranding of NXT 2.0, which is heavily character based. You know, she kind of reminds you of Trish Stratus.
Okay.
And so I think she's somebody who, when she comes back to the main roster, she'll be a megastar. But yeah, those are some of the ladies. But you know, trying to think. Oh, and you know, it's definitely, as far as black ladies, Lash Legend, former WNBA, I believe, yes, former WNBA star. She just has an incredible character. You know, she's definitely somebody to look out
for. Now, as you was talking about, you know, Mark Henry and Booker T, I have a list right here, just like the OGs: Bobby Lashley, Mark Henry, Booker T. How influential has those three guys have been in pushing the black athletes for WWE?
You know, so Lashley is difficult because Lashley's still there, right?
Okay.
And he's currently writing his legacy. He's a two-time WWE champion, the third black WWE champion, but also he beat Brock Lesnar. Yeah, Roman Reigns interfered, but so what?
That's the baby.
In the history books, it's Lashley beat Lesnar for the title. And Lashley essentially had to vacate it because, no, he didn't vacate it because he did show up in the match, but he got carried out because the Elimination Chamber because he was hurt. But so he's still writing his legacy. However, with him and MVP, they did create the Hurt Business, which was sort of like the Black Four Horsemen, the Black Evolution. Him, Cedric Alexander, Shelton Benjamin, they used to all come out in suits. Unfortunately, the Hurt Business disbanded after Lashley won the championship, and it really had the black wrestling community upset because they felt, and even MVP and Bobby Lashley upset because they felt it was so much more that they could have done. We hope we get it back. We don't know because Lashley and MVP not on the same wavelength right now, but kayfabe wise. But you know, as far as like Mark Henry and Booker T, I will say they a lot of times come off as the harsh uncle. And what I mean by that, a lot of times what happens is they're loud when they're criticizing. I've heard Booker T get on his podcast to say, you know, what's this about Naomi deserves a chance? Nobody deserves nothing. Or he said some things about Sasha Banks, and people don't like what he has to say.
So like he's on his like Charles Barkley swag, like his Shaquille O'Neal swag. Like,
yeah, bingo.
The young stars.
Yeah, and he does that with everybody. But you know, when he criticizes the black stars, it's going to be louder. Always. We're going to hear it louder.
Always.
And you know, even with Sasha Banks and like walking out, or I don't think he said nothing about her, but you know, like he talked to Montez Ford, who's Bianca Belair's husband. Okay. And him and his partner Angelo Dawkins, former tag team champions of NXT and WWE. But he's talked to them. And I remember one time he said to Montez Ford, he said, "We're gonna talk privately because I got some advice for you." And Montez was very receptive of it. Okay. And so I do think they help more so, but people hear the negative stuff. But there are also times where I'm like, Booker, you ain't had to say that on your podcast. You could have just, you could have just kept that
Could have
to
texted,
yourself.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. Same with Mark Henry. It was the same thing. A lot of people, because there was a guy, Leo Rush, and people felt Mark Henry was too loud and saying stuff, and they had an issue. But now Mark Henry's in AEW, and him and Leo was together, and they took a picture like everything's all good. So he was loud about how he felt Leo Rush handled certain things. He went to him, asked him, did he have a problem? This is what the sheets say, and Leo said no, but then more stuff. But so I do think they help the black wrestlers. I just don't know, I don't know how much, what people will want from them. You don't see them managing yet. You don't see them like being super vocal. I think with the influence people see more is MVP with the Hurt Business, helping elevate those guys, helping elevate Bobby Lashley. And now MVP is with Omos, who's a 7'3" giant. And he's been helping him. And like with MVP, one of the things Paul Heyman said, it was important that, like, I think during that period where Paul Heyman was like the loudest manager on SmackDown, it was important that MVP was the loudest manager on Raw, and he sees a lot of great positivity in MVP.
Now, last question before I get you out of here. We got John Cena coming back.
Mm-hmm.
We know John Cena, The Rock, Triple H, Brock Lesnar, kind of like the biggest goats in the last, 15 to 20 years.
Yeah.
Who's the new big face of the WWE where it's transcendent? I just, I know you're a little bit deeper in the sport, a lot deeper in the sport than I am. And it seems as though WWE doesn't have that just like it's everywhere person that's next in line after John Cena to me.
You don't think so?
I just not well when I say it, like, okay, when it came to Triple H was, when I say everywhere during his prime, during his heyday. You got The Rock everywhere. You got then came John Cena, and I feel like after John Cena, kind of Roman Reigns, but it's just like he's not as much in our face as John Cena was. Every freaking week, every month, John Cena's doing something. He's going viral for something that I just don't know. Who in your opinion is the face of the WWE?
So a couple people. Well, no. So one thing, just to piggyback off what you said, because you're right in a lot of aspects, right? And the reason why I'm glad, because like you said, you not being in space, it allows me to get out of my wrestling bubble. Mm-hmm. So when Austin walked out in 2002, I don't know if you remember that. The story is 2002 King of the Ring qualifying tournament, which basically they put you, in a match, you wrestle this person, you go to the King of the Ring tournament. They wanted Stone Cold Steve Austin to job to Brock Lesnar. And because everybody knew that Brock Lesnar shows up the day after WrestleMania 18, which the day after WrestleMania is a time for debuts. It's the reset button. They wanted Lesnar to Stone Cold to put him over. Austin's issue was, if this is your next big star, I'm Stone Cold Steve Austin. Make it a program and let me put him over. Don't just throw the match away. He was also dealing with a lot of stuff. So that's what irritated him, right? So Austin walks out, he leaves the company, he quits, whatever. It felt like around that time, they was like, okay, we cannot be dependent on one superstar. Okay. Now, John Cena comes a couple of years later, the ultimate company man. You could say to me the greatest WWE superstar ever, because Bruno.
I put him second behind The Rock.
I say The Rock is the greatest entertainer ever to come out of WWE, right? Okay. It's a lot of ways. It's a loaded question, right? Or a loaded statement. But with Cena, like the ultimate WWE guy, right? He just went to Hollywood, but for years he carried the company on his back, longer than Hogan, longer than Bruno, longer than Rock, longer than Cena. Austin. The thing about Austin and Rock was we really had them for 4 to 6 years, but those years were so impactful. It was a lifetime. John Cena, so we had that. And John Cena finally goes away, but now it's like WWE's global. You don't have to depend on one superstar. But the guy who stood out over the past 2 years has been Roman Reigns.
Right.
Vince wanted Roman Reigns to be the face of the franchise, probably when he laid eyes on him, right? And if you remember, people was booing him, people didn't like him.
Yeah.
They was telling him, oh, he's going to be our champion, he's going to be our champion. Then Roman reveals that he had been battling, his leukemia had flared up. All of a sudden, everybody loves him now, right? He comes back, people wondering, okay, are they going to force feed Roman again? You know, he got to get back in the ring shape. You know, he's got to get his body back. Then the pandemic happens. So Roman, who was slated to beat Goldberg at WrestleMania 36, now, because of the pandemic, he got to protect himself. He takes about 6 months off. He shows up at SummerSlam. He's got a new look. And then he's with Paul Heyman. And now Roman has now evolved into the tribal chief, the head of the table, telling people to acknowledge him. And he's been the one person, he's been champion ever since the week after SummerSlam 2020. We're looking at a historic reign. And I'm one who's been watching wrestling long enough. I'm not tired of his championship reign. Now he's dialed it back. But to me, he's the face of the franchise. He's the WWE right now, and everything he touches has been gold.
I feel like Roman Reigns, I agree. Roman Reigns is the face of the franchise. He is the darling of the WWE. But it just don't hit the same. I just don't feel like, you know, he's transcending the sport in multiple avenues internationally, like the previous stars. But you put it in context. I do think, yes, the business model for the WWE has changed. Like you said, they can't be dependent on one star, especially how athletes in this day and age just switch from genres to genres. You know, everybody want to be in the movies, everybody want a reality television, some want music, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I can see how Vince McMahon and WWE just like, you know what? We don't, you know, we gonna put you on this 360 and we got to keep everybody on these 360s.
Yeah. And the thing is, like with like Roman, he just stood out, and it's kind of like, this is who Vince McMahon wanted him to be. Like this reaction, right?
Yeah.
He's the ultimate, like,
it's like he's trying to mold him like he wanted to mold Triple H. But it's like Triple H ain't, you know.
And the thing is, like, you gotta look at too, like with Roman, this is the thing that tells the story. T-shirt sales.
Okay.
He's beaten John Cena numbers.
Wow.
That's unheard of for a heel. Because usually the baby face, right? The baby face is because, you know, that's what CM Punk's gripe was when they turned him heel. He's like, man, you know, I lost money in merch because now I'm a heel. People want to buy a shirt, but the kids don't, right? And we talked about that earlier. But, you know, you got little kids walking around with Acknowledge Me shirts on, adults, you know, and Roman shirts are transcendent. I can wear a shirt to say head of the table, and like, oh, that's a dope shirt. I want that.
It's just, yeah.
You know, like the Miz, right? You could wear a Miz shirt to the clubs, like, oh, hello, I'm awesome. Or, you know, so that's the thing about Roman. He got one that says greatness on a different level, but it's really saying God mode. Okay. It's, you know, acknowledge me, you know. So that's the thing with him was the fact that, you know, the T-shirt sales, the merchandise, everything touches him in gold. And I would say Seth Rollins would be next. But to me, Seth Rollins will be like the Shawn Michaels, where he's a great superstar, top superstar. A lot of people know him, but they really know him because of wrestling. Rock were transcendent. You know, you could put them on magazines and you might not know nothing about wrestling, but you knew who they were.
Yeah. And now, before we get out, can you tell me, all right, you're going to be on a panel at the Black Wrestling?
Yes, Black
Wrestle Fest. Okay, Black Wrestle Fest. So tell me about it. It's going on this Saturday. Give me a spin.
Yeah, so this Saturday in Brooklyn, New York, I'll be two things on a panel at Black Wrestling Fest, Black Wrestling in Media, which will be hosted by Sir Wilkins of the Jobbeteers podcast. And then I'll also be on Podcast Row with a lot of other podcasters, Those Wrestling Girls podcast, two Black women who very heavy into wrestling. They're both very heavy into wrestling. They cover women's wrestling. So them, the Dirty Hills podcast, a podcast based out in New York, and a couple of other podcasts. I just like those two are like people I've been affiliated with. They've been on my shows. I've been on their shows. And so we got Podcast Row. We're gonna have a lot of Black wrestlers there, people from the independents. Just to name some, my boy Keith Mack. You might know Keith. Keith is also a member of the National Association of Black Journalists.
Okay.
He's a cameraman at ESPN in Charlotte. but he's also a professional wrestler. So I'm really excited when we both worked in Bristol together. We would I went to a few of his matches. He's my son's favorite wrestler, but we would watch wrestling on the network doing work. I think I can say that now. I mean, we're still doing our work, but we watch wrestling. Him and so he's going to be there. Willow Nightingale, I believe, is going to be there. She's one of the up and coming Black women's wrestlers on the Indies that people should be on the lookout for. Shane Taylor and Moses of the Shane Taylor Promotions, and I believe O'Shea Edwards will be there too. Those are wrestlers. Shane Taylor was former Ring of Honor television champion, should have been Ring of Honor champion, but politics, and then Ring of Honor shut down. But one of the biggest independent wrestling stars in the world. So I'm really excited about them. But yeah, what's really exciting is the real Dwayne Allen, myself, and brother Hugh of the Wrestling Realm will be in there in full force. We're gonna be driving up to Brooklyn this weekend, and it'll be our first outing as the three-headed monster. It was always me and the real Dwayne Allen for years. Then this past year, brother Hugh has been kind of our marketing manager for the past few years. One day he got on the microphone during the show, and now he's the third member, third co-host. So it's been great. We do the Wrestling Realm Now podcast every Wednesday night. Well, we record every Wednesday night. It drops on Thursday. But yeah, so it's really exciting.
And it's during Juneteenth weekend.
Yeah. So it's doing
Juneteenth like, weekend. Bro, y'all killing it.
And I got to give a shout out to Danny of the Pretty Hills. The Pretty Hills are the ones who put together this event. Danny's a wonderful event planner. Me and her been talking about, getting involved in NABJ, just kind of put that out there. So I'm not sure about Vegas, but next year I got to be there. But she put this together. And one of the things that she wanted to be a collaboration just to celebrate Black excellence in wrestling. It'll be other people of culture. There's been other investors of different backgrounds. I did an interview with her on the Wrestling Realm channel, so you could definitely check that out. But yeah, Danny of the Pretty Hills, just definitely want to give her flowers because of all the work that she's done. And, just looking at this opportunity, there's going to not only be, there's going to be a women's panel, there's going to be a men's panel, there's going to be a wrestling and drip panel, sneaker panel. A lot of wrestler fans are sneakerheads.
That's dope.
Like the real Dwayne Allen and brother Hugh, they can tell you about the sneaker culture. I can't. I wear what I like, but there'll be that. And I know like Danny, I believe, is a sneakerhead. So there's going to be a lot of other stuff. There's going to be opportunities for family fun games where we're going to play Family Feud with wrestlers, get in the ring. So you get the in-ring experience. So it's a lot. I'm really excited for it.
I appreciate you, Brian.
I appreciate you, bro.
Talk WWE. Why don't you tell the people where they can follow you and get all your content for the Wrestling Realm?
You can find us at Wrestling Realm, Realm spelled with a W. Shout out to my mother for the alliteration. Follow me at Brian H. Waters. Always put the H, as my friends from the Black Wrestling Podcast would say. But make sure you www.brianhwaters.com. You can find me.